The problem started early. When Bruce was in elementary school, the kids in his class made fun of him. They teased him and taunted him. And when the teacher made students work together on projects, no one ever wanted to be in Bruce's group. They said that his ideas were stupid. When Bruce went to college, he was a timid young man whose head was full of thoughts and experiences, but who rarely shared them. When he did come out of his shell, he sounded so apologetic that few people gave him notice. On some occasions, people might humor him and hear him out, but even then, he couldn't seem to share his story in any interesting way at all. His words felt lifeless and boring. They seemed to be barren because nothing ever came of them. But deep down inside, he knew that he could be more interesting than that. He knew that somewhere inside him there were fascinating stories to tell and compelling words to share. If only he could find the voice. If only his words would stop being barren and come to life. Bruce was experiencing one kind of barrenness, when we are unable to communicate our stories and convictions. Many women of the Bible experienced another kind of barrenness, not being able, for a while at least, to have children. This is especially noticeable in Genesis, and it turns out to be a strong literary element in the story. This summer, we've been looking at stories of the Bible that take place at a well, since our theme over the summer is Come to the Well. We've learned that biblical writers often used a type scene as shorthand for their hearers and readers, and though they in turn understood right away how the story would play out. To understand how this works, let's think about one of our culture's type scenes. When we watch a movie and we hear scary music, what do we know? What do we know? Say that louder. Okay, something bad's gonna happen, somebody's gonna die, there's gonna be danger, something to alert us. If you weren't here 2 weeks ago, one of the type scenes that we thought about was white hats and black hats. In a Western, who wears the white hats? Good guys. And who wears the black hats? Bad guys. We know about type scenes. And the Bible does too. Barrenness turns out to be a biblical type scene. Just as the stories when a man meets a woman at a well. So we have two type scenes connecting here. Barrenness begins toward the start of the Bible with Sarah, who was promised a child but couldn't conceive for the longest time. Her daughter-in-law, Rebecca, meets a messenger at a well, and it leads to marriage with Isaac. She turns out to be barren for a while, and then she conceives. Then comes Rachel. We're going to look at her when I return from vacation. Rachel is Rebecca's daughter-in-law, who meets her husband Jacob at a well, and whose barrenness is so very painful to her. So the subsequent births that she has are even more savored. We can add to this list Hannah at the beginning of 1 Samuel, and Elizabeth in the New Testament, cousin of Mary, whose baby came at an advanced age. And we have a pattern of barren women and long-awaited births. Now, we overlay well stories on top of that. Last week, we noted that the story of Moses meeting his wife at a well fits all the criterion for such type stories. It was set in a foreign country. Man meets woman at well. One of them draws water for the other and for the flocks. The woman rushes back to her family to tell of the stranger's presence. He is invited to stay and dine, and the two are married. If the woman is barren, she will eventually conceive. Changes or elaborations in that particular story will tell us something important about the characters. So, did you see the connections to our gospel story from John? Jesus has crossed into Samaria. It says he had to go through Samaria. It's a land and a people hated by Jewish Galileans. A Samaritan woman has come to the well to draw water. Now, it's odd that she comes at noontime in the heat of the day, and that has made people speculate that she was shunned by polite society. After all, she's had 5 husbands, and she's living with a man not her husband. However, in first century Palestine, that might not have been so unusual. She needed, for her own well-being and safety, to be under some roof, somebody's house, some male's house. Her father, her husband's family. So she might be living with one of the husband's relatives. I suspect that the detail of coming to the well is not meant to get us speculating about how she was a bad person or an immoral woman or something like that. I think it's a literary element that shows that she gets it. In contrast to people who come and find Jesus at night, she comes in the day. She is ready to be enlightened. She will be receptive to the light of Jesus' words. So they meet. She draws water for him, and they talk. Jesus listens to her. He seriously engages her on theology, history, and personal story. He accepts her as she is and invites her conversation and presence. And this so transforms her that she runs to tell the village about it. Not just her family, as in the type scene, but the whole village. Jesus has freed her voice, and many believe because of her testimony. He has enabled her to speak fruitfully. She's no longer barren in any sense, for those who believe on her account are her spiritual children. Her story has borne fruit. She has been instrumental in the birth of faith in her fellow Samaritans. Now she has spiritual heirs. So just like the women in Exodus and Genesis who meet a man at a well and eventually have their wombs opened, this Samaritan woman meets a man at a well and has her womb opened, and what she bears is fruit from her story. All of which leaves us with a question. How does Jesus make our stories fruitful? Well, sharing where you see God at work in your life is one way. And this summer, we have these opportunities. Work camp is one of these opportunities. In small group devotions, in conversations with your crew, in meeting people from many Christian traditions and practices, you will have the opportunity to share the difference Jesus makes in your life, as well as the questions and struggles you have about being a Christian. As you get to know your neighbor and you share with them why you've come to their town, you have the opportunity to frame your service in light of Jesus' call and claim in your life. Another way that everybody can share where you see God is through our photo collection that I mentioned earlier. Taking pictures of where you see God makes you think that you're going to see God. It makes you expect that. And when you expect it, you begin to see it more. Then snap a picture and send it off. When we compile them and are telling our stories through pictures, they will be fruitful. So you remember Bruce from earlier. Well, Bruce discovered how fruitful stories can be as he became a working young adult. He was making an effort to speak up more. He was finding himself accepted more than ever before. And one night he went with some of his new friends to a dance. He was enjoying their company and feeling unusually comfortable when he spotted a somewhat disheveled young woman coming toward him. She was wearing a leg brace, and she just looked like she was not comfortable in her own skin. She asked him if he would like to dance. Well, he didn't really. And he knew that it might not look too good to his new friends if he danced with her, but how could he say no? So they took a turn around the dance floor. Afterwards, they shared some brief conversation, and as soon as it seemed polite, Bruce thanked her and moved back to his friends as quickly as possible. 6 years later, when Bruce was living in another state, he received a phone call from a woman who said, "You may not remember me, but I'm the one in the leg brace you danced with that night. I wanted to let you know how much that meant to me. Your dancing and talking with me made a real difference in my life at that point, and I wanted to say thank you." We have no idea how our presence, our stories, our time will impact upon another's life. We don't know the difference our words will make, but we do know that God invites everyone to come to the well, that lives are transformed when Jesus meets us at the well. We are now going to play a song called "Jesus Met the Woman at the Well," accompanied by, and particularly at the end, it's almost like a call of commitment in your life to bring yourselves to meet Jesus at the well.